que el número que está en las pantallas está conectado a un WhatsApp y va a recibir las preguntas de ustedes. Luego serán seleccionadas a través de un sorteo tentario y se las transmitiremos a Bill al final de su presentación para que pueda responderlas. Bien, Bill Blaney es un líder creativo, es experto en comunicación digital, un estratega de marketing y autor de libros bestsellers en Nueva York. Ha producido trabajos premiados para numerosos clientes a nivel mundial y nacional, incluidos Canon, Verizon, Samsonite, JP Morgan Chase, Computer Associates, Festo, Capital One Bank, DeLonghi, entre muchos otros. Su libro B2B, A2C, herramientas y estrategias de marketing que generan clientes potenciales para su empresa en el contexto del business to business, se ha utilizado como parte del plan de estudios sobre marketing industrial en universidades de todo el mundo. Voy a dejar con ustedes a Bill entonces para que comience con su presentación. Muchas gracias. Bill.
Buenas tardes, espero que todos estén disfrutando de este encuentro. Mi nombre es Bill Blaney. Antes que nada, quisiera agradecer a Gonzalo, a Roberto y Procor por invitarme a venir a hablarles. Es un honor para mí estar presente en hermosa Santiago. Además, quiero agradecer a Rocco, a Tyrone y Procor por organizar este evento excepcional. Mi español es muy limitado. Así es que ahora sí es el decreto quisiera continuar en inglés. That's okay. All right. 3 years of Spanish in high school, and I had to have a Chilean friend translate this for me. My Spanish teacher is somewhere like looking at me with a guilty look. But anyway, today what we're going to be talking about is marketing and industrial branding from B2B to B2C. And the structure of what we'll talk about is we're going to talk a little about branding. You know, what is great, what works with branding, some of the trends that we find now in branding, and then we will move into marketing and talk about some of the trends and the tactics that are working for us there. It works. Okay. What you see here, just a little about me. As Roberto had mentioned, I am about a 25-year veteran of marketing agencies within New York. I have worked on global brands, you know, some you're familiar with, some national ones and local, some you may not be, from the perspective of B2B and also from B2C. And myself and my colleagues, a lot of what we'll be talking about today are actually practices that we are actively involved in. So I'm involved in the day-to-day of this, even though I speak, I don't learn most of what I do from reading books, it's actually from doing it. First thing I'm going to start with is just this question and a little story. Why is a strong, clear brand necessary? Well, I'll tell you, when I first moved to my neighborhood where I live, which is about 17 years ago, I went over to the local Chinese restaurant and just to get some takeout. And on the wall there was naturally a corkboard with a lot of, vendors, apartments for rent, handymen. Honestly, to this day, I couldn't tell you what a single one of them looked like. Very rudimentary marketing, with the exception of one, which was a babysitter. And this is why. Babysitter for hire. Hire Emily. This is what she put up there. Now look, naturally, this is rudimentary marketing. You wouldn't expect a babysitter to really understand how to present themselves. But the fact is, a strong brand defines how your customers are going to perceive you. So it's important for everybody to know exactly what they are and what they're saying when they go out there. Actually, we did use Emily. Here's a picture of her with my son. Anyway, what I'll ask you is, what defines a brand? Anybody want to take a chance at that? Well, you don't have to. Because the fact of the matter is, a brand is defined by many things today. Really what a brand is, it is the nexus, the crisscross between what you put out as a company in your communication and what the customers or potential customers and people outside translate that, communicate it, and feel about your company. It is that pinpoint that creates a brand. And in the old days, you would be able to control that, as we'll talk about. The fact that your communication was paramount, but today it's not the case. There's a lot that gets talked about within branding that is out of your control. So a lot of this really comes down to how you're going to present yourself and how you make yourself unique. And here's a quote from another speaker. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. People don't buy what you do, they buy why you do it. It is the most important way of differentiating yourself from your competitor. You may be selling the same exact type of product, but it is your unique personality as a company that makes a big difference. Branding does a lot of things good for people. Strong brands improve recognition. I guarantee you, you know every single one of the logos here, and you know the names of the companies. But you also very likely know what they stand for. We know that Facebook is not simply an application. It's about connectedness with the world, with people, with friends. Same thing with McDonald's. McDonald's is about having a meal with a family and a little bit of Americana. And to some of us, gaining about 1,000 calories. But for B2B, a strong brand, a known brand, will get you in the door. So having the wind in your back of knowing that you have a brand out there that is well communicated and is well marketed so that your potential target as a customer already knows a good deal about who you are, what you stand for, what your core set of values are, over and above the product they may be buying, is a great thing for a salesperson to have. Strong brands create trust. One of the words I've always liked is the word organization. And the reason being is because not only does organization talk about a company and its structure, but if you're lucky, it talks about how you are an organized entity that can communicate and do whatever your potential clients want you to do. And being organized is of extraordinary importance when it comes to creating trust. Because there are a lot of companies out there that have a brochure from 5 years ago, a website that just went up, and they have salespeople going out and talking about different things at different times. There is not a consistency in the brand across the board, and there really needs to be today. What you see up here is one of our clients. It's a company called Bystronic from Switzerland. They create metal bending devices. Some of these devices are huge, they cost $1 million. So when you go and buy a product like that, you have to know that there's not only an element of trust, but there's a service and a support that you're going to get. So consequently, with the brand, and I'm not just talking about the brand identity, but the messaging, the way they talk, the way their people talk, is all consistent. So you can, whether you're in their building, whether you're talking to a salesperson, whether you're looking at a piece of collateral, there is a consistency in the color, the feel, and the message especially. For B2B, a strong brand minimizes buyer's risk. Let's face it, if you're a president of a company or if you're a salesperson, somebody, a buyer within a company, you want to know that if you're buying a CRM or you're buying a piece of hardware or anything for your company, that there's some element of trust that you can have in it, some feeling of calm, knowing that there is enough out there that you can learn about this company to make you feel good about getting it, and also, as an underling in a company, being able to go to the president of your company and say, this is what I want to make a purchase on, and making sure that that purchase makes you look good, because it's nice and clear to be able to understand. Strong branding builds financial value. Let's say you're Coca-Cola, and tomorrow you lose everything. You lose your factory, your inventory, all of your employees, and you're the president of Coca-Cola, and you stand around going, what? Except you have two things. You have that formula, and you have the brand. If you go into a bank, is there any bank there that's not going to help finance you to get Coca-Cola back? Because to this day, that brand of Coca-Cola is worth far more than that formula. They can tinker with the formula, but Coca-Cola has built such a brand and a name for itself and an identity that it's got a value in and of itself. Strong branding inspires employees. We live in a world now where a lot of the new people that we're bringing in are millennials, Generation I millennials. And these people, certainly in the States and elsewhere, have grown up when they got into the workforce not having the same opportunities their parents did because of the economy being down. So what's happened is a lot of them have looked at the world not necessarily from the perspective of the paycheck, but what do I want to do in this world that is going to better this world? Now that doesn't mean that everybody is going to go out and join the Peace Corps. But the fact of the matter is that if you are a company that has a set of values that people can stand behind, a mission of what you want to do, and also if you're a company that has a purpose or is behind some greater purpose or some greater division, whether it's whether it's for world hunger or whether it's sustainability or whatever it may be, if it fits with your brand, if this is something that you could bring to the table, it's going to make those employees more interested in coming to you. And you can get some of the best people, and not only that, when you get good people as employees, they become some of your best brand ambassadors. And today you're going to need that, especially as we talk about other things here. So, a couple of statistics. 60% of millennials seek employers with a clear purpose. 82% of employees and executives have more confidence in a company with a strong sense of purpose. So it's all backed up when you're looking at branding for your employees. And lastly, there we go. Strong branding generates new customers. Now we talk about word of mouth referrals. Word of mouth referrals doesn't necessarily mean that you're speaking to somebody who's directly used the product or the service that you're going to look to purchase. It could be that that person has had an experience, and it may have been a testimonial ad, it may have been a video, it may have been something experiential at a trade show. But the fact is, if your communication is consistent across the board, if you have different ways to explain the strength of what you do, then the awareness of that will be all around, and you will get recommendations from other people across the board, and will increase your business. So, once you've achieved strong brand recognition, your job's complete, right? So it's been a pleasure talking to you. Now, the fact of the matter is today, brands have to evolve. They must evolve. And I'm not just talking about the evolution of a company, but marketing itself and branding has evolved dramatically in around the last 15 years or so. It's huge. And it's not a surprise, because people have evolved. I mean, look, we've gone from this to pretty much this. Except for some of us who may be like this. But the fact is, everything that people do now when they're looking for a company is to qualify it, to research it. Is anybody familiar with Carfax? Okay, Carfax in the United States is a company where they take the serial number from a car, put it into their web browser, and it will give you an entire history of that car. Accidents, where it's been, who's owned it, etc. This has completely changed the landscape for used car dealers. Used car dealers used to be able to go out, sell you a lemon, and you're driving off the lot, and they're high-fiving each other. They're just happy to get rid of it. They can't do that anymore, because with Carfax, you go to a used car dealer now, and they give you the Carfax. It has changed the culture of a lot of what we do and how we function as a company. And as far as salespeople are concerned, and your position in marketing and branding, 80% of your buying cycle will be out of your control by 2020. They're saying consumers will prefer engagement online rather than a salesperson. Now, some of this is switched over. You can certainly understand this with younger viewers, like my son, who spends his entire time on the phone or the iPad. They don't really engage the same way we used to. So this will be a trend that will take over eventually, and we've got to be prepared for it. knowing, for better or worse, knowing that this is where some of this is going. Communication is evolved naturally. Where marketing before was a sermon, which it was, we are going to tell you what it is that we want you to know about our company. Now it's not. Now there are review boards, there are forums, everybody can talk about your brand. Everybody can comment on it. I have clients who we have reputation management for. So if there's anything said derogatory about them online, we address it. We don't talk down the people that are derogatory, saying derogatory things. We try to be active. And you find most of the time that that actually helps. To be able to be a proactive organization within the social space makes a great deal of difference. And it's necessary to do that, and a lot of companies do not. And lastly, let's face it, some people have the attention span of goldfish. So your company may be at the top tier of where you want to be today, but somebody could come in and they could be better at their message, better at social marketing, better at understanding the elements of marketing and how to get in front of that customer and micro-target them. And then you'll be saying what happened. So it's good to always be involved yourself. So nothing in the business world stands still, so you can't either. I'm going to give you a case study here on Canon. It's a company that I worked on for marketing and branding for around 9 years. And even though we know that Canon as a business has had to evolve from film to digital, that's not really what we're going to talk about. Now, most of you know Canon from this, from the consumer equipment, great lenses, etc., quality products. They also have a lot of business-to-business products as well. And then they have real deep down business-to-business products. These are some that I worked on. Security systems for institutions, government, display units for schools, for medical, for hospitals, and then for broadcast. Those lenses right there are anywhere from $100,000 to $200,000, and usually they look for someplace like a CNN to buy a whole series of them. So the communication we had to do, dramatically different than from selling gum. There's a whole different qualification we needed to do that. So anyway, when I first started working with Canon, their slogan and their position was Canon Know-How. Canon Know-How. It was a company made up of engineers who had a great deal of influence in our marketing. And they wanted everybody to know that Canon was a great engineered product. It was a quality product. And this is an idea that goes back for a good long time. Anything that's imported into any other country, you want to talk about the quality and about how good it is. And Canon, for the most part, has been able to live up to that. Most people knew that they were the greatest lens on the planet. A lot of people didn't know that there were a lot of other things that they did. But anyway, from the 90s up until the early 2000s, that was their slogan. And we did advertising for them that fit to it. Here are the features and the specs and the quality elements you can get with these products. And it worked fine. But the thing is, the evolution of marketing had changed. And it changed because of the way that the public has changed in the way they learn information. So by the time we got to 2004, 2005, everybody at that point is on the internet. So the discussion is not even about the internet. What it's about is connectivity through all of your devices and how flexible you can be. Can you move around? Can you go here? Can you go there? Can you work or do or be productive any place that you want to be? Will this software work with that? Will this computer work with that? And so knowing this, Canon had developed a lot of their products so they all work together. And so the idea was to think, how can we change our position in a way that we can not only talk about how good we are as products, but how they are all interconnected. How they work together and they free you up. And so in 2005, Canon changed its brand positioning to Canon Image Anywhere. And I'll read the positioning statement from that. Image Anywhere represents the company's ability to create a borderless environment of people, devices, images, and information that lets people live and work the way they want to virtually anytime, anywhere. So we're no longer talking about the quality of the products. We're talking about a device that is flexible with you, be it for creativity or productivity. And that was their position. And we started promoting products in families. And we started talking about the flexibility in our advertising and our marketing. And it worked out well for them for a good period of time. But once again, companies evolve. They evolved to pick up more business within the cinema industry. They started developing educational centers and support centers, and really building on that idea of what I used to call the Miracle on 34th Street approach, if any of you remember that movie. You had Santa Claus working in Macy's, and he was referring people over to Gimbels, saying, well, you can't find that here, but it's over there. And it was the idea that as a company, for whatever it is you're selling, it's the support that you give that also will help build your brand. Not necessarily all the things that you are particularly selling, but everything else as well. And so, something changed in 2006, 2007. There was a company that started. Does anybody know? It was, Facebook came into the public in 2006. Prior to that, it was only at schools. So once it came into the public, everybody, of course, is on Facebook. And Facebook and Google and a lot of these young companies had a different perception of how to brand themselves. Because they knew, going all the way back to the dot-com bubble, you can't just brand yourself as an application. They had a greater purpose, and that was part of their brand missions and part of their values. We want something bigger. We are about connecting the world. We are about not doing harm. We're about being a catalyst. And so thinking about this, in 2014, Canon changed their position again. And that position is see impossible. In fact, they even have a bug now of, breaking out of the box. And their new mission, which is right now, is see impossible symbolizes the company's desire to break the boundaries of what is possible and shift the focus from Canon as being a sole manufacturer of quality digital imaging products to a company that empowers the creative spirit within its people and its customers. Now they are a catalyst for your creativity and productivity. And everything else falls under that. And this is how branding and marketing has changed a great deal in the way that it's presented to the world. Because we are now a big global community. And we're a community where everybody talks to each other. So having a community sense in your marketing is really what's important. So brand evolution is the key to keeping your brand relevant. Very important. But you could be relevant, but you're still going to have competitors. So how do you differentiate yourself from a competitor? Once again, what are the different types of brand positioning that you can have? And we've got a few here. Position and own a category benefit. This is one way in which you can brand your company. In the case of Walt Disney, their brand are really two things. They mean two things in this world. They own the idea of magic, and they also own the idea of storytelling. If you go to Disney World, do you know what their janitor is called? He's called a cast member. If you go to Universal Studios, you know what their janitor is called? A janitor. So it's a big difference in the way that you look at your brand holistically in trying to make sure that every touch point that people have with your brand is consistent and that story is being told across the board. Position the product and the consumer. Sometimes what you want to do is you want to motivate the consumer to believe that you are a brand that means something personal to them, or you can motivate them. We know just do it. Just do it is an action. We want to, if you're somebody who's just going to go out there and discover and push in the world, we are the product for you. We identify with you like fashion. In the United States, even for the U.S. Army, be all you can be. It's a motivator as a way to position your product or service. Position how the company does business. There's a lot of companies, particularly in the B2B space, who do this a lot. 3M, science applied to life. It's still talking about how it's going to work for everyone else, but you're very specific about what your discipline is. And this is one I like a lot. Position against your competition. If anybody knows the story of Hertz and Avis, they're both rental car companies naturally. And Hertz's original position, being the top of the field, their tagline was, "We're number one." So how do you counter that? Well, that's what Avis did. They went to an agency and they came up with this tagline, "We're number two. We try harder." And that completely turned Hertz on its head. I'm not sure what the Hertz brand was after that. It might have been something like, "Oh yeah." But fact of the matter is that it was a way to change the conversation in a really dramatic way and brand yourself, give yourself an identity you wouldn't normally have. Now, brand comparisons. How do you own your category when there are other people in that category? Even other people who may be, as we call, the 600-pound gorilla in the room, the big kahuna. There's a couple of ways to do that. I'm going to give you two examples. One is B2B, one is B2C. Let's start off with the B2C. And that is Uber. Uber's brand position, Uber came into the market with the idea of challenging taxis. And their brand position, which is a very professional one, is everyone's private driver. It's an alternate to taxis and limos. And they have broken down their business so that there's different divisions like that, so they can go after those corporate clients, even though naturally they get people all over the place. Even for employees, toward full-time, more chauffeur-based. They're looking for people who want to be professional drivers, and their market strategy is professional. Now, I know you have Uber down here. Up in the States and elsewhere, we also have their competitor, who in some cases is on even keel with them. And that competitor is Lyft. Lyft, in some places, is actually eating Uber's lunch, but Lyft decided the way we're going to present ourselves to the world is your friend with a car. And what they're appealing to is the idea, once again, of how millennials look at the world. That they're looking for experiences, not necessarily the material things that have eluded them, but the idea of having experiences, which is what anybody wants, with your families. Experience, adventure. They're looking, it's fun driving experience and a sense of community. And even for their employees, that recruitment, relaxed part-time drivers who enjoy people. So, you're going from a professional position with Uber to the same category, but an emotional position for Lyft. So they're able to subsist in the same category and equally have their own brands work well. For business to business, we have SAP. SAP is a CRM, customer relationship management software. I'm sure a lot of you have that. And SAP is the big 800-pound gorilla in the room. But the way that they want to present themselves, once again, is to be very professional. So, their brand position is run simple. Comes with the idea that you already have an operation which is smoothly running. It may be very complex. So the idea is that we are going to come in as your CRM system or as your inventory system, and it's seamlessly going to flow in. It's going to seamlessly become part of this. And as a result, you won't get into any trouble with that. So it's a very professional idea of helping customers do their best in what they want to do. Competitor. One of the bigger ones is Salesforce. Salesforce is a great deal smaller than SAP, but they're coming up huge because they've once again picked a position that is an emotional position against SAP. And their tagline is blaze your trail, because they know that the people they're looking for are entrepreneurs. They're motivated business people who are excited and active in their business. They could be startups, or they could be big companies looking to get bigger. And they want to be your partner in this. Not simply, put us in there, we'll sit in the back, don't worry about us, we know you're doing what you're doing. So Salesforce, they see themselves as for pioneers. And it's an emotional approach to branding. And it's a way for them to stay on here and differentiate themselves.